I think it's time to lay off one Juwan Johnson for his missed catch. LSU injury updates are coming your way, as well as some updates concerning the Saints' next opponent. All coming up right here on the Louisiana Lunch Hour podcast. And welcome, everyone, to a brand new edition of the Louisiana Lunch Hour podcast. Appreciate you listening in. As always, we drop this right around 12 o'clock Central Time. That way you can listen to it while you're getting your lunch in. And trust me, you don't want to miss this one because we got a lot to talk about on this big old Let Me Talk to You Tuesday. That's how we're going to handle things on the pod going forward. And I'm going to start off with the hot take that I have because I think it's well past time to lay off of one Juwan Johnson. And again, I'm not going to tell you ever how to think or feel, but I just am of the firm belief that we need to say, hey, like Juwan Johnson, yes, he should have made that catch, but at the same time, the level of difficulty of that was pretty damn difficult. Like, you can look at this play over and over and over again. I feel like fans are going to look at this over the next several days and be like, man, he should have made that, blah, 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 blah. The armchair quarterbacks, or in this case, tight ends, dumping on Juwan Johnson for not coming down with that potential game winner on Sunday, I will never understand that. I've watched it, and it's clear the reason why he didn't come out down with the ball wasn't because, oh, he's got stone hands. It was because of a great heads-up play from Budda Baker. You just need to lay off the guy. He has not been horrible. He hasn't been elite like a Travis Kelce, but he's been very serviceable when you look at his career as a whole. And I see him as being a guy that can be that way. It's just he's had some bad luck. 11 drops over the course of his career. If that were the biggest criticism he has, I would absolutely agree with that, but I'm not going to write him off and call for his job because of a play that I firmly believe would have been tough for 95% of the tight ends in the league to make. It's absolutely ludicrous. Again, I understand the frustration because it was a potential game-winning touchdown. And if Juwan Johnson made it, would have been top 10 on SportsCenter and probably goes down as the top 10, if not top 5, all-time greatest catches in New Orleans Saints history. And that's saying something. They've had some really great catches over the years. But that one, considering what he was dealing with, because he was pretty much in double coverage, and Budda Baker basically pickpocketed him on that play. You look at that play a million times. I would challenge you, if you think you have any amount of talent, to try and do and replicate that play and nail it 10 times out of 10. You're not going to do it. Even the next gen stats showed he had a 14.7% chance of making that catch. You cannot tell me that you could make that catch on your best day. I don't think there's a amount of those keyboard warriors out there that are hating on Juwan Johnson that could do what he did, that could make that catch or make some of the catches he makes. Again, yes, it hurts to lose that game the way that you did, but at the same time, you did it to yourself in a certain way. You were kind of screwed over by the refs, calling that an incompletion a few plays prior. That should have been a first down and extended the drive. You weren't able to kind of get things going consistently after that. You had to kind of go through all 4 downs in some drives and burn up a lot of clock with no timeouts left. It's mind-blowing to me that we're nitpicking this one play when there's probably at least 3 or 4 others combined with, like I said yesterday, all of the procedural pre-snap penalties, illegal shifts, illegal formations, offsides, there were so many of those like idiotic calls and penalties that were made that should have been nipped in the bud during preseason. It's one thing to do that on the road, but you were at home. You're the ones that are supposed to be able to handle everything that's going on in terms of the play calling and you can handle the heat when it comes to the fans in your own stadium. But you showed me you can't do that. And it's mind-boggling to me that we are having this conversation in 2025, no less, that the New Orleans Saints can't figure that part out. And it's crazy to me. And I want to get into some friendly discussions on X. And one person wound up saying about Juwan Johnson missing a game-winning 2-point conversion last year against the Washington Commanders. Now, I had to kind of refresh my memory because admittedly, I think by that point in the season, I was kind of over this team. I was like, all right, we're going to move on and kind of just go from there and figure everything else out. So when I looked at things, it's like, unless I'm watching different film than y'all, I can't criticize him for 2 crucial catches because of good defensive play. He brought up the Commanders' play, and I want to go and look back at it. First off, you had a play action rollout for a 2-point conversion. Like, what are you doing on that front? Run a slant route, run a pick play, do something that's not going to take too long to develop, because I guarantee you the defense is going to sniff out a play action rollout very quickly. And it did not look good, did not pay off because DB was right in front of him on that play. Now, obviously, you had the 49ers yesterday have Jake Tonjes. He winds up getting a really nice grab to get the team the win. Somehow, some way, that guy has made an impact almost immediately. Like, I guarantee you nobody had Jake Tonjes on their fantasy team, but I feel like waiver wires are going to be popping off for that man as the season progresses if he continues to be more than a one-hit wonder. It was a bang-bang play. And we're making too much about a bang-bang play. I can hate on a guy that's dropping a bunch of passes, has a bad case of the stone hands, but 11 career drops, and again, the last 3 years he's had 3 drops in 17 games. Do better, Saints fans. Do better. Trust me, I've seen a lot worse in terms of drops. He's not Kobe Fleener. He's not some of the other middle-of-the-road guys you had in the 2010s after you traded Jimmy Graham for Max Unger, which wound up being one of the best decisions the Saints made for the second half of Drew Brees' career. Looking back at it, I think they won that trade like running away. But when you look at what this Saints team has right now, they showed you. And this is kind of the silver lining in all this, is that one, if Kellen Moore trusts his quarterback in Spencer Rattler, and I feel like he's going to eventually, especially as the season progresses, you can see this team winning more games than you expected about 2-3 weeks ago. Back when they tied in the preseason, I think we see a lot better of a team. Now, mind you, you've got to deal with injuries. You've just lost Julian Blackmon. He's out for the year with a labrum injury. He's going to have surgery. So that's another thing you're going to have to kind of figure out, whether you go get somebody in a trade or you work the free agency market and figure out what you need to do to fill that void. Who's going to be there? Who's going to step up? I don't know. I'm not on the team. I'm not scouting everybody. But I feel like the Saints fan base has way bigger issues than complaining about a bang-bang play. Meanwhile, looking over to LSU football, they got some good news on Sunday with Braelin Moore being listed as day-to-day according to Brian Kelly at his press conference on Monday. And he also went on to say that the MRI did not give them the true sense that Moore has a high ankle sprain. It's a positive report, and hopefully the situation improves. Because based off of all the film that I saw, I didn't watch the entire game. I definitely skimmed through some of the highlights and some of the key moments where things didn't necessarily look 100% great. The offensive line did not look elite after losing their center on the first play from scrimmage. Meanwhile, tight end Tre'Dez Green sprained MCL according to MRI he had on Sunday, and he is going to be listed as questionable for playing in the SEC opener against Florida. It's not as much of a concern, at least to me. Emphasis on that, at least to me. It's not as much of a concern as losing Braelin Moore for long term. Losing both those guys long term would hurt. But I think losing a tight end may not be the biggest concern in the world, because I think if you lose your center, that offensive line synergy that you've been working on all throughout training camp, it's lost very quickly. Losing both those guys would hurt. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like one of those, not being able to play for the SEC opener against Florida, is a lot more concerning than the other. Because I think you need to get this run game online. You need to get this run game more consistent. And Brian Kelly said as much in his presser on Monday, saying they have to be better on the ground, especially when it comes to technical things in terms of getting the fundamentals of run game done. Because this is a team, when you look at the LSU Tigers over the last several years, it feels like they have drifted further away from what made them elite. Don't get me wrong. They've had a lot of great wide receivers over the years, but it felt like after, Darius Geis, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, all those guys left, the running back core has kind of regressed towards the mean. They're not necessarily, you don't have a whole lot of dogs on that part of your game. You have a lot of great wide receiver athletes, but I have not quite seen a true standout running back yet. I think Caden Durham has shown himself the potential to be so. Harlem Berry has the potential to be so. But if you're only able to get that in spurts from time to time, it's not a good look. Again, 13 carries for 29 yards for Caden Durham. That is not a great look at all if you're the LSU Tigers. If you're a team that has had a legacy of having phenomenal running backs dating back 30 years, and if you have to rely on kind of a 3-4 running back by committee situation, it's not a great look. Because if you don't have a great ground game, you're going to be over-reliant on the passing game, and defenses are going to sniff you out way more easily. It's just facts. It's just facts to me. So hopefully this can kind of get things going in the right way. Because you're going to the SEC play. And I know you're playing against Florida. Billy Napier has been on the hot seat. You have Scott Strickland basically saying, hey, we're going to keep him around, which sounds like a load of malarkey, especially if the season gets worse and worse as time goes on. And when you look at their schedule the rest of the way, yikes. That said, it's an SEC team, and they are going to be licking their chops because they lost to USF, a team they should have beaten by at least a couple touchdowns. And they're looking at an LSU team. They struggled against Louisiana Tech, a team that was getting outgained yardage-wise by Southeastern the week before. Think about that. They won the game, shut them out, but allowed more yardage. That's one of those mind-boggling stats I saw week one. And this is like a New Orleans Saints offense. Not necessarily 100% consistent, and couldn't win the game going away. Like they should have, again, I keep going back to it, LSU should have won that game by at least 3-4 touchdowns on Saturday. That said, when you look at this team, up and down that roster, they have so much potential. And it feels like the polar opposite of what we saw in 2023. The offense in 23 was lights out. You had phenomenal, dogs on that offense. Meanwhile, the defense just couldn't stop a cold. It's why you had to hire Blake Baker, who has kind of started to get this thing back on the right track, but you're still not 100% sold if you're LSU that this defense can do so against elite offenses. You're going to be dealing with Ole Miss before too long. And the Lane train has definitely ran one on you over the last few years when it comes to these offensive games. And if you get into a shootout with Lane, I feel like you're bringing a knife to a gunfight. Just my opinion on that. And we'll wrap things up going back to the New Orleans Saints, because this is some news that kind of popped up late in the afternoon. And that is about the New Orleans Saints. This is yesterday, by the way, late yesterday afternoon, about the Saints' next opponent. We're going to start turning the page to Sunday's contest, treat it like a 24-hour rule. We're flushing everything from last weekend, and we're moving on to the next game. We're going to treat it like we're the Saints. Cam Jordan talks about the 24-hour rule. That's how we're operating going forward. And we got news on the injury front for our former NFC West rivals from way back in the gap. According to head coach Kyle Shanahan, Brock Purdy currently sidelined with a shoulder injury as well as a toe injury. So as of right now, his status is uncertain for this weekend. It's crazy to think if the former Mr. Irrelevant can't go on Sunday, then the duties will flip over to who? Mac Jones, the former Alabama quarterback, former Patriots quarterback, a pretty much bona fide scrub in the world of the NFL. So that's a bit of good news. And then you throw a couple other logs onto the fire, namely tight end George Kittle. He's going to be out for the next several weeks due to a hamstring injury. That got confirmed a little bit before Monday Night Football got kicked off. We usually talk about Friday news dumps. How about a Monday Night Football news dump from the 49ers? Not a great look to lose him. And this is probably making Saints fans and the Saints defense lick their lips because they're going to be going up against one of the most mediocre quarterbacks in recent NFL history. The guy that had to replace the GOAT and could not live up to the hype not one bit over in New England. Like when the Saints played against Mac Jones last, they pretty much made him look like a grade A jabroni that was playing for like an FCS program, not the University of Alabama. Then again, I think that a lot of Alabama quarterbacks have not translated well to the NFL. Now, mind you, we could definitely throw out Jalen Hurts. He has been one of those guys that has translated extremely, extremely well to the NFL after spending some time with Nick Saban and the Tide. But you look at all the other guys over the last decade, like A.J. McCarron, very much a who when it comes to the NFL. Tua turned the ball over. He hasn't been all that great. Now, mind you, I think a lot of the concussions and all that has affected him. But still, a lot of Alabama quarterbacks have not translated well to the NFL. And I feel like if Mac Jones can't get on the same page as Tonjes and some of the other wide receivers and some of the dogs they have on the offense, I mean, Christian McCaffrey, if he's healthy, could be a key cog in that offense because the Saints haven't been as great on the run defense as they were like the tail end of the Drew Brees era. That was when you had that offensive line, the defensive line firing off on all cylinders, and the run game was largely kept under control. But again, you look at what I saw just this past weekend with the Saints, they struggled stopping the tight end. Trey McBride was like a man on fire. Like every single time as a third down, they just went to the safety valve and picked on Trey McBride, and every time he was just catching them. It was impressive to see every single time he was open and got himself a couple extra yards. I said it on the pod like middle of last week, actually, saying that he was going to be a big X factor in this game, and he was. Because at the end of the day, Marvin Harrison can get stuff done, but Trey McBride is somebody that I think is sneaky good, and he's proving himself to be a lot better as he's getting a little bit older. And again, I think Kyler Murray was shook up by the defense to start the game, but the Saints defense eventually kind of let up outside of maybe Carl Granderson. Carl Granderson was an absolute beast and stopped at least one big touchdown from happening off of a very wide open run. He was coming from the other side of the field and got the tackle. That shows how much of a dog he is, just a pure-blooded athlete. And hopefully he can stay healthy because I think the Saints will absolutely need players like him to get the job done going forward. But that's about all I got for today's edition of the Louisiana Lunch Hour podcast. A little bit more of a lighter news day. You know, a Monday is more or less, the coach speak kind of day, kind of recap things from over the weekend, give yourself some injury updates. And also, honestly, I feel like having fun and doing some hot takes. Tomorrow, we'll get into some film room discussion, see what some of the quarterbacks are looking like as we head into week number 3 for college football, and maybe a little week 2 action for the NFL as well. So make sure you go check us out on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts, anywhere you get your news. Go ahead and follow us. Just search Louisiana Lunch Hour on your phone on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, all that stuff. We're available wherever you are. So make sure you go do so today. And thank you once again for listening. We'll catch you tomorrow on the next Louisiana Lunch Hour podcast.